Coach, the podcast that sharpens your vision and elevates your game. Join Coach DJ, a seasoned soccer coach with decades of experience, as he guides listeners through the tactical maze of soccer coaching. Powerful coaching insights, proven coaching strategies, all shared to help coaches at all levels thrive. Just as coaches remind their players to keep their eyes on coach for crucial information, this podcast serves as a vital resource for those looking to enhance their coaching skills. Whether you're nurturing young talents or refining seasoned athletes, Eyes on Coach is your playbook for success. Together, we'll break down complex tactics, explore innovative training methods, and unlock the secrets of player development that actually work. So tune in, stay focused, and prepare to see the beautiful game through new eyes. Eyes on Coach. Now, here's your host, Coach DJ.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, guys. Welcome to the Eyes on Coach podcast. I'm Coach DJ. Just wanted to say hello. Today we have an interesting topic because it's something that is actually very, very important for youth players and particularly for competitive clubs and competitive teams and coaches that are working with competitive teams where you're trying to put the team together that is basically the upper echelon of your skill sets for a lot of your players. So what's going to happen when you have one or two parents, and if you've coached long enough, you know what I'm talking about. It's always going to happen. You're going to have a certain number of parents that are upset enough, feeling like their child has been left out when it's, they're feeling unjust. It's unjust, right? It's basically like my kid is a better player than you give him credit for. Like that. And there will always be those parents that are bold enough and interested and caring enough that they want to have that conversation with you. And as a coach, if you're in the position where you have a larger roster of kids and you have the ability to pick and choose which players are actually rostered for matches each time there's a match, or you're going to a tournament and you're selecting a subset of your team to go and be rostered for the tournament, it's always uncomfortable, right? It's always that you make these decisions. Sometimes it's because of certain players being available or unavailable, or certain players are maybe sick. And sometimes everyone is available and you have to make the choice for which players are going to be selected to come to the tournament or play the match. And, sometimes you're choosing certain matches where an opponent might be most appropriate for, the opposing side might be most appropriate for certain players to attend and get the experience without too much pressure, playing to their level. And other times, it's going to be a much more competitive, higher level skill set type of match. And you want to, put your best foot forward with, giving other players more of an opportunity at a higher level of play because they're capable and because that's where they are in their development. That's always difficult. And sometimes it's, it comes down to the beginning of the season, or really at any point, now that I think about it, where you have certain players that you are including or not including in the team, and you're asking certain players to be focused and playing like a lower level or a different, B team type of situation. And they'll always have those parents that are, willing and open and want to have that conversation with you. So what I was hoping to kind of talk about today was being prepared for that, right? Number one, I think the most important thing is that you are taking the time and you're really looking closely at evaluating the kids. So what are you looking at to, guide your decision making on players and where they are? And, for me, it comes down to a few different areas. First of all, obviously we're looking at skill level assessment, right? So we want to be evaluating players based not on their technical abilities, how well they can control the ball, how well they can pass, and their accuracy of passing, their shooting technique. Can they shoot effectively? Are they using proper technique, or are they growing and showing that they're doing those things after being instructed and taught the right way? If it's an older age group team, you have certain expectations on those technical abilities, and being open with how well they are doing in those, how well they demonstrate those different technical abilities is important, because if you're not paying attention, it's easy to allow the physical abilities of a player to kind of stand out, and really taking a close look at how well they actually perform and what their technical abilities actually are in the drills and the exercises that you are doing in your training sessions. You can see which players, comparatively, if you will, how they measure up. The second area for me is obviously the physical attributes. So at a certain level, if you are, developing a competitive group that, you want to be pushing these kids to be in a position to compete at higher levels of play, their speed, their agility, their endurance, and their strength, these are factors that need to be considered. So you would obviously want to be measuring them as best as you can, but sometimes it's just direct observation. So in scrimmages, do you find certain players are growing tired, or are certain players just motor always on, right? Versus, when it's, that active level of play where they are, challenged to accelerate and explode into a play or away from into space. Do they have the speed and agility? Are they demonstrating the ability to change pace and do that for longer periods of time, as well as strength? So, you look at certain players and you see the way they can drive the ball, or the way they can, stop a ball that's moving at a high rate of speed, or, in the goalkeeper position. Are they strong enough to stop a hard shot and hold that ball? Does it look like they have the arm and hand strength and the ability to, basically make a play that requires more strength? These are things that you'd want to be measuring, but most of the time, it's really just through direct observation. So one of the things I like to do in these areas is basically, you're constantly evaluating the players every day, even though the season is underway. You're constantly evaluating them take notes, right? Give them, even if it's a 1, 2, 3 rating, maybe it's a rating of, 1 to 5 or A, B, C, D, like whatever you want to do, just to have some baseline for each player, and then, be able to move the needle as you see evidence of growth and development. Another major area that I like to keep eyes on is the evaluation of their tactical understanding. So, do these players have an ability to grasp the game strategies? Do they demonstrate and understand positional awareness? Decision making during match situations? Are they able to make decisions, and how quickly can they make decisions? You see a lot of these younger players, the youth players, when a play doesn't go their way, most of the time, in my opinion, we can see evidence of a slower decision making and things taking place faster than they can handle. So they make a great stop, right? They collect the ball, they make a great first touch, and then the window closes, right? And they don't get the shot off, or they don't get that pass off, and the window closes, and the other team's in there poking the ball away, right? So dribbling, they might be dribbling down the field, making a great run into space, pushing the ball. You can see maybe even they've got their head up looking for the next play, and it just takes too long for them to actually make the play, and the window closes. So another area that I like to make sure we are assessing is the ability to understand their position and demonstrate that they are moving into position and different positions on the field based on the play that is unfolding. So do they understand, this is a tactical skill, do they understand moving to space, or do they understand transitioning to a defensive posture based on what just happened, right? So where the ball is on the field, who has the ball, what just happened, can you see them thinking and positioning themselves properly before it becomes something that is a risk, right? Perfect example is we're using a build-up line, right? So goalkeeper gets the ball, our offensive team, where we back up to the halfway line of the field, and our wingers, as soon as the ball is played from the goalkeeper out of the back, do our wingers immediately rush wide to cover the other team's wings, right? So do they understand that they have a responsibility to shut down the other team playing out of the back, and they do that by their positioning, right? If I don't see things like that happening, I feel like this player doesn't truly understand their role. And this is another thing to measure, So obviously overall performance is another thing you're taking into account. Are they consistent? Does it appear that they're improving over time in practices and training sessions as well as matches? Are they demonstrating things that they're capable of consistently? We don't ever get down on a player or get truly upset with a player because of their youth and inconsistency as a child, right? So like a 9-year-old or even a 12-year-old, whatever, they're not professionals, right? They are not expected to be perfect all the time. Who is, right? But are they relatively consistent in their abilities and you have a higher level of confidence that you know what you're going to get when you're watching this player play. So some things like that are basically the high level for me is just, can you evaluate these players, right? And get a sense of who's who and what they're capable of and where they are in their development across those basic fundamentals of the game. We always say technical, tactical, physical, and mental. And I like to basically be trying to evaluate and understand where a player is in those areas as a basis for how I'm evaluating them. So naturally, some players are going to be developing at different rates, right? So you basically have the early bloomers, right, where some players may show those advanced skills early on, but you have to keep in mind that their rate of improvement might slow down over time. And it's important to keep challenging those players and not let them become too complacent. You also have the late developers. There are other players who will take longer to develop, be it physically or mentally, or technically rather, or even their tactical understanding of the game. Sometimes it is mental, right? Sometimes it is their ability to respond to the game. I've seen good players on some of my older groups where, 14-year-old is still like shaking his arms and looking up at the sky and getting tears in his eyes when he makes a bad play, right? So mentally, is this player ready for a high competition level of play when that's going to happen a lot, right? So the late developers is an area where, these folks, they might not be showing all the attributes yet, but you can see they may catch up and they may actually surpass their peers later on. They might become your starters 1 or 2 years down the line. You never know, right? And of course, there are specialized skills where some players might excel in specific areas while needing improvement in others. And tailoring development plans to enhance strengths and address weaknesses is key for those individuals. You don't want to lock people into certain specialized skills too soon, right? I say this all the time, but like a goaltender at age 9 shouldn't be a thing, right? You should have 9 of your 15 players on the team rotating through the goal position, right? Or, everybody playing as many of the positions as possible. And it's important because they develop their abilities, they widen their understanding of the game. So what does that mean? Like, how do you train goalkeepers when you want everyone to be doing it? Well, there are specialized skills for that position, just as there would be for a winger or a striker or a defender or midfielder, any position. And we would basically be specializing in the sense of what are the skills that we need to teach for these positions. So maybe you have, goaltending day where you're working through the basics for, 15, 20 minutes with everybody, right? For a youth team, they love it, right? But in a scrimmage situation, maybe you have a defender who's currently playing a striker. Well, that's an opportunity to be, pointing out and explaining and showing in a positive way what the role is for this position. And they start to learn. And over time, when they get challenged in a match situation, those things will become more apparent. So I wanted to talk also today about when a parent does approach you, right? So what kind of talking points would a coach have for dealing with a parent who is concerned that their player is not chosen or is not included in the upper echelon or on the team and what have you? And it happens every once in a while. You'll get a parent that is upset or concerned that their child wasn't included. But I like to, one, emphasize that decisions are made based on objective evaluations of each player's current skill set, and the level that they're at, their athleticism, their technical abilities, their tactical understanding, and it's not personal, right? It's objective based on the skills. Secondly, I like to explain that the goal is to place each player at a level where they can be challenged, but still experience success and growth. So sometimes that means that I don't think this is the right fit for this player because the level of play for this team or for this league that this team is going to be in or for this tournament, I don't feel like that's setting this player up for a positive experience and the proper development environment. Sometimes that's hard for a parent to hear. It's hard to say sometimes, but it's important. The third thing is to remind the parent that player development is happening at different rates for different individuals. And just because a player's current placement is what it is, it's not permanent. It's not always permanent, right? It's not a final judgment on their potential. It's just an indication of where they currently are. So that current placement is not permanent. And I remind parents all the time that I've had players that were lagging behind in the past that became, the starters later on in their careers. Next, I also like to highlight specific areas where their child can improve, to potentially move up in the future. And the constructive feedback and the specific development goals, your reasoning, is important to have available for that conversation. Next, I also like to reinforce that playing time and team placement are earned through their performance, effort, and improvement. It's not guaranteed based on, who they are or past status or parent, whatever a parent says to me, or how friendly I might be with a certain parent. It's not like that. It's based on the skill sets and the abilities of the kids and the specific areas that they show in performance, effort, and their level of improvement. Next, I also like to express, and you want to be able to, make sure this comes out genuinely, is your commitment to helping each player, regardless of their level, regardless of their, position on the team, what have you, reach their potential through quality coaching and development opportunities. And that's on the coach, right? To help them be in position to do what they need to do. So you are committed to being there to help them regardless of whether or not they play this weekend or whether or not they go to this tournament. Next, I'd like to invite the parent to have the conversation again, right? Schedule check-ins throughout the season to discuss, their progress and the child's progress through the different areas of growth, and, stay close with it, right? We want to pull people closer, not push them away. Because one day it's real. Their development happens at different rates, and that kid might be your star later on. And then, also we want to acknowledge that the parent is disappointed, right? It's real feelings, and it's okay to be feeling that way. But we want to reiterate that decisions are made in the best interest of the player and the team as well. So, and lastly, I like to offer suggestions for additional training or skill work that player can be doing outside of team practices. I don't always see a lot of improvement by doing this, but specifically pointing out some things that they can be working on could sometimes be helpful. It's also, hey, I recommend your child go find a wall and pass to the wall 1,000 times might come off as a little bit, upsetting to a parent. But regardless of whether or not that's the truth, some parents might handle that better and might also not be the thing to say. All right, well, that's all I had for today. I hope that's helpful, but I'd like to open it up as well. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns or thoughts on what kinds of things you might be doing to prepare for evaluating your players, and as well as being prepared for those difficult conversations with parents. But thanks for joining me today. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.
You gotta just let them play.